The way that you may have noticed this, the way that progressives now talk about eugenics is to generally blame it on people like, Southern racists and conservatives and Republicans, and because they don't know what they're talking about. It was overwhelmingly a progressives project. Now, is that just a mistake is it just an aberrant? Was it a mistake? Because that's also how, once they're confronted with the evidence about how many progressives supported eugenics and actually did the eugenics research and funded the eugenics research, how do you think eugenics fits into the progressive ideology generally? Because progressives now, when asked, would tell you that it has nothing to do with progressivism. It was just this unfortunate sort of addition to it in the early 20th century. It was a mistake that was corrected and we got rid of it. And now progressives are nice people like Barack Obama who don't believe in eugenics, you mean conspiracy theorist. So what do you think? What is the connection between eugenics and progressivism?
So there is a profound connection there. You might almost say it's genetic in the progressive genome. But it is a profound connection. And the best articulation and documentation of that connection that I have ever seen was by Murray Rothbard in The Progressive Era. Mm-hmm. And I would really suggest people read that bit of history if they haven't yet, because he really digs into the biographies of a lot of these people, the Richard T. Ely's and others, and looks at their backgrounds, which were generally speaking ecumenical. A lot of these people were devout believers, Protestants from families of preachers, etc., who were going into the seminary or actually had attended seminary and things like this, who became converted essentially to the progressive ideology, or really founded the progressive ideology there in the late 19th century and propagated it into the early 20th century, and essentially swapped out the sort of eschatology of the Protestant Bible believer for the eschatology of we're going to perfect humanity through the state. And that was ultimately what became the new god of this religion. And part of that, it was mixed in with this idea of improving the species through eugenics. Because don't give eugenics a bad name. Dysgenics is that icky, involuntary sterilization or killing people or that kind of thing. No. Eugenics is about good genes, propagating the good genes into the future by making sure that the healthy families breed. And who are the healthy families? What does it mean to be a fit person and well-adjusted? And who gets to decide that? Oh, of course, people who are in positions of power. So of course, from its very inception, this was always an upper class elite ideology created by respectable gentlemen scientists in late 19th century England, and of course adopted by upper class and well-to-do people around the world. Because of course, well, yes, this is why we are successful, is because we just have the genes for it. So we clearly know what to do, and we know how to tell people. And this also provided a convenient justification for the robber barons that arised in the 19th century, the nouveau riche of that time. How do they justify becoming part of the power class? How can they wield power? They're not part of these families that were chosen by God or anything. No, it's because our genes helped us rise to be the cream of the crop. So now clearly we deserve to be here. It's such a convenient ideology in so many different ways. And I think it meshes very well with the progressive ideology, which, as I say, was about the perfecting of humanity through the state. It was going to be the state that was going to essentially guide people into this. And part of that would have to be the state would tell you, oh, you're not fit to breed, or whatever the case may be. And that was an important part of it. I do note with some relish, I believe it was just last year, that Planned Parenthood was removing Margaret Sanger's name from their building, I believe, in Manhattan, something along those lines. I did cover it at the time because there was an iota of realization that, perhaps this eugenic ideology, which Sanger was a devout adherent to, might actually be a nicky little blemish that we don't want to advertise too much. But she's still a saint on earth. And let's give the Margaret Sanger Award to Hillary Clinton for.
Yeah, I've talked about this a lot. Planned Parenthood has denied basically that Sanger was a eugenicist for years and years and years. And on their website for decades, every time you would check it, they would have the front page would have the sidebar on it, which was the denial of Sanger as a eugenicist. But just read Pivot of Civilization, her big book, and it's just plain as day, everyone. And I'm sorry, but that's just look at the text, and I can even send people the text. You email me, I'll send it to you. It's clearly eugenicist. Now, that doesn't mean anything, though, about my position on Planned Parenthood. I generally think they do a good thing. I don't want them to take government money, because I don't want to take anyone to take government money. But I'm pro-choice essentially, and that it doesn't discredit the pro-choice movement, right? But it is absolutely true that it was founded as a eugenicist organization, targeting particularly, and this is why Black people are more skeptical about the government putting needles in their arms than other people, right? Was specifically targeting the residents of Harlem and other Black neighborhoods in the 1940s and 1950s, et cetera. And even Black leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois and others were all for this, because they wanted to winnow out their population too. They didn't like the drug dealers and the pimps and the prostitutes and all those at the bottom of their society. So it's now, okay, so I think eugenics, I agree with everything you said. I think the progressive mind is very much a scientific mind, or I would actually say a scientistic mind, right? Because they believe, as you were saying, science, the state, but I think also this science is the new God, right? And that's why
and in fact, that's where the technocratic idea comes from, essentially, is the merging of the scientific with the state itself, so that the state becomes a scientific entity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's why eugenics made a lot of sense to progressives, or it was very appealing, I should say, because it was a way to categorize human beings, which is, you got to do that before you can manipulate them, put them into categories. And then you can decide more easily who gets to get sterilized and who gets,